What is going on, you guys? Today we're going to be working on an Ali Abdaal clip because I saw that a couple of you guys have been making some comments about wanting to see his style and how you can do it in Davinci. So take a look at this clip, and that's what we're going to be recreating today in Davinci. Let's jump in. So I got Davinci opened up and I just got his clip here, and I'm going to drag a Fusion clip in here just for length comparison, and then we can actually right click on it and jump into the Fusion page. So now that we're in the Fusion page, I usually bring in whatever clip I'm working on just as a comparison. I'll bring it in the left window, so just click and drag it up there, and then I'm also going to rename it. So I'm going to hit F2 and I'm going to rename it Ali clip, and then I'm going to connect it to media out. And a lot of the stuff that we're going to be working on today, if you've worked in Davinci before, this isn't going to be very complicated in Fusion. It just might be a bit time consuming to do. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to drag in a background. We're going to connect that to our Ali clip to create a merge. And we're going to do a bit of color stealing here. It's just going to make this tutorial go a bit faster for you guys. If you want to take the time to perfectly match everything, feel free. But for the sake of the tutorial, we're just going to grab some colors. So first thing you're going to want to do is turn this into a gradient. And we're going to click on this first little guy right here and grab this dropper. And we're going to create the background here. So we're going to click on the second guy over here, the second part of the gradient, and I'm just going to steal something over towards this side of the screen, bottom right, and then we pretty much have our background here. I mean, realistically, we just need to throw up this green square and this red square or red rectangle, whatever you want to call that shape. So we'll do that. We're going to grab another background. We're going to connect this, and we'll rename it to red square, and then we're going to grab a rectangle mask. So the good part about having multiple viewers is you can kind of just match everything up. I mean, you can totally eyeball this, it'll come out great, but now we can match things up and get it very precise. So I'm gonna bring down this rectangle mask. Doesn't need to be anything crazy. I'll bring down the height. It's gonna kind of go off the screen anyways, so get it to about where it needs to be. Bring in the width. Push it over a little bit. Bring out the width a little bit. Push it in a little bit more. And then you're just going to play around with this corner radius. So I'm just going to drag this in till it gets pretty good. Alright, and that looks pretty comparable. Now we got to, yet again, we're going to take the color from this red square. So we're going to jump in here, grab the color, and then we're going to Control C to copy these nodes, and then we're going to Control V to paste them. Make sure you hold down Shift on this merge and merge it in. Just drop it into place. And now we're going to work on the green square. So I'm just going to rename this guy. Come in here to the beginning. Green. Change that around. I'll move this up, so we'll just go up to the top. I think the roundness is pretty much the same, so we'll just leave it. Now we got in pretty much the same spot. I'm going to change the color again, so grab from here, grab the green. You can also feel free to grab the values off here if you're not going to download this tutorial and compare the colors. So just steal the values from here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make this box that we got here. I'm going to bring in another background. I'm going to copy this first one because it's pretty much the same. And we will drag that in here. And then I'm just going to adjust the coloring a little bit, see if it's any more off-white, because it's a little off-white. I'll grab the top left, and then I'll go to this one and I'll grab the bottom right. now that we got that, we're going to do essentially the same thing we've been doing. Bring in a rectangle mask, and I'm going to bring it over and just adjust the width, make it long enough to fill out this box, maybe a little bit less than that. Doesn't have to be perfect. You guys can adjust a little bit more on your end. I'll try and center this up and bring down the height. That looks pretty good. Adjust the corner radius like we did before. Maybe I'll go in a little bit more on this one. And we're going to be animating this, so we're going to be keyframing a lot of these properties. So just get ready for that. But now you don't see anything because this one has a bit of a drop shadow. I'm going to go ahead and bring that in here. So I'm going to hit Shift and Space. I'm going to type in drop. And then you're going to get this pop up. Grab your drop shadow. So just type in drop shadow and then add it. And then that looks pretty good. I might change the color of this to more of like a gray. I'll change the drop distance, but I might just increase the strength a little bit. I want it to stand out a little bit more, just make it easier to see. So we're going to go with that. That looks pretty good. And then I also have the icons for you guys, and I'll link that down below in the description. I'm going to link them as SVG files. So if you've never used an SVG file in Fusion before, you come up here to Fusion, you go to Import, and you go to SVG, and then you're just going to find the location. So we're going to go to my YouTube channels, Ali Abdaal, assets, and then we're going to find this number 1. That's what we got to bring in. You can't just drag and drop these in here. And I should have probably adjusted the resolution of this to make it a lot smaller. So we're going to do like maybe 500 to start. So we'll do 500 by 500. And if you don't know, I just came into the image property of the SVG file that I just brought in. So now we will drag this into the pipeline here. And we're going to make this a little bit smaller. So maybe we'll go with 150 by 150. So now that we got this SVG file, I'm going to actually create this little teeny box. So how I'm going to create that box is I'm just going to drag some of this stuff over a little bit so we got a little bit more room to work with. And I'm going to just grab this this whole section right here. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it, hold Shift, drag it into the pipeline, let go, and then you can let go of Shift. And now I'm going to drag, I'm going to drag this up from the drop shadow, and actually I'm going to disconnect this. So I'm going to hold Shift and disconnect it. I'm going to merge this right in here. Then I'm actually going to create this box like I said. So I'm going to just drag this in. We already got the drop shadow on it. We're going to need to tweak it a little bit. I'll move it over, pretty much just center it about that and bring down the height. Might need to round the edges a bit more. A little too rounded. I don't know. It doesn't look exactly the same, but it's pretty good. It does a pretty good job. So now for this one, we are going to actually need to adjust some properties in here, because otherwise, if the blur's too far out, it's going to start affecting this rectangle. So we got to bring down the blur to maybe about something like, I don't know, 0.24-ish, and then I'll bring the drop distance and just play around with this for a minute. Drop angle and everything. We'll keep the drop distance pretty close to it, and maybe I want to see if I'm able to really bring out the edges without destructing this one. So I don't know. That might be the best that we can do here. And now we're going to grab this number 1, and I'm going to just hit shift space. We're going to bring in a transform node. My thing keeps popping off the screen, so apologize for that, but we'll use a transform node, and we'll get this guy into place. I'm just got to rearrange all my nodes. Got a little messed up. So bring transform node, and just keep dragging it over till we got it in the correct spot. So just try to center it, get it pretty good. It's unfortunate that natively Fusion hasn't added in like a centering tool, at least that I know of, for different objects and stuff. I know After Effects and Premiere, the Adobe products have it. So I've been experimenting in that, but so now, since we have an SVG file, we can actually open this bad boy up and kind of see how these masks are made. We can actually change the coloring on here. So I'm not going to do this black stroke outline, but we can make this into this green here. So I'm going to make sure I'm adjusting the right thing. It's the background 2. And then I'm just going to steal the color from here on this green. Pretty good. And maybe I will even copy the number 1. I know it has an outline on here of black, but we'll just copy that. And that way it looks a little bit more similar, I think. So now that we got that, we will actually move some of this stuff over. I'm going to delete this merge, and I'm just going to save. It's always good to save your project with Control S. And now we can actually move on to the text portion of things for a second. So I'm going to get in here a text node. I'm going to drag one in, and we can just kind of connect this into the same little pipeline that we got going on here. So I'm going to connect it to this merge. And then I'll just adjust the different positions of all these different things. And we'll bring this in. Now the font that we're going to be using for this is called TWSen. It's pretty comparable to what Ali uses himself. So I'll have that down in the downloads section, or the description, I mean. For download if you guys don't already have it. And then we're going to type in what he's got up here. So we'll type in Y. So we got all that. Nothing's popping up on the screen. That's because we have our writing in white, so we just got to change the color. I'm going to do it in black like he does. And then we'll just make it a bit smaller. So I'm going to copy everything, and I'm just going to tweak the size of it. Make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to make it even smaller because it still looks like it's even smaller on his version of things. So I'll just make it pretty small, and then we'll come in here and I'll just adjust the height, and that looks pretty good. And now he's also got the little picture of himself. So I actually don't have a video of myself on this hard drive, so I'm just gonna pull up a screenshot. It's literally gonna be the same thing on your guys' end. Just you potentially could be doing it with a video. We're gonna match this right here. So I brought in the screenshot, and I'm just going to bring that in here, but we'll bring in a transform node. So hold shift and space, type in transform. We can bring it in here, and I'll just bring down the size of this guy, and we'll make it something like that. And we're just going to bring a rectangle mask around him, and we'll do about the height. And then we will, the width is pretty good, So we're just going to make the corner radius a little bit better. So maybe like 0.139 looks pretty good. We'll even bring down the size a bit to more match Ali's video. And then you just gotta kind of position him wherever you want on frame. We'll bring the size down a little bit more because it looks like he doesn't quite fit. But then you got that, and I mean, essentially he's just got some sort of border around here. So, you know, we can also make a border that kind of shoots around here. He's got some like type of gradient on here, so we'll just make a background. We'll merge this in, and then we'll copy this mask over here, this rectangle mask, connect it to the background, and I just need to move some things over, and also need this transform. I'll put that underneath the background. Bada bing, bada boom. All right, so I need to make this background 8495. You guys probably won't need to do this, but your resolution needs to be the same. So 8495 by 5663. 5663. And now we got it in the right spot. That's kind of why it was out of place, because it wasn't the correct resolution. And now we're going to come up to the rectangle, and we're going to untick solid, and we're just going to change the border width to give it some sort of border there, just a little bit. And now what we can do is he's got like this whitish blue going around, so we can just adjust the background color here, do some sort of gradient. So we'll do like a white on one end, and we'll do a blue on one end. See if we can get it to be a lighter blue. Something like that. His is a little bit darker. But, you know, this will give you the general concept of what you're going to want to do. So now we have to actually create something under this. So we'll move this over a little bit, and we'll copy all this. We will paste it in here, merge it in, and this one will make probably like an off-white. So I'll just do a little bit of an off-white underneath, because he has like a just like an outline that goes around. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna actually animate this line going all the way around it. So essentially you're just going to choose how much of it you want to see at any given time. So we're going to just adjust the length, maybe something like this, where you can only see part of it is good. And then, you know, we would just animate this all throughout the video. So we'll animate the position. We'll go to the very last frame, because it pretty much just keeps going around. We'll change the position, and we'll see what it looks like to go around 10 times. I can play it. And now you got this blue color going around your image the whole entire time. Looks pretty good. Now that we're playing around with keyframes, we can do a bit of easing. So let's just jump in here to this rectangle, go to spline, open up this and show only selected tool. Make sure that's checked off. Then we're going to hit Control A, select all our keyframes, and hit S. That's going to smooth out our keyframes, and it's just going to make everything look a bit nicer. You can actually play around with those values. It's just quick and easy if you do it that way. 1, 2, 3. So now what we're going to do, now that we got that done, is we are going to go on to the next part. So we're going to come back to the initial first frame. And we can just play this video forward. And we're going to just make this box expand. So we're going to be animating that box. Let's go to the first keyframe, or first frame that it starts moving. So I'm going to use my arrow keys. So right here, and I'm going to start labeling stuff because it's just going to be a lot easier to find what we need. So let me label this merge with F2, person, merge. This will make it a little bit easier to look at. So now I'm going to label this, and I'm going to label it foreground rectangle. I'll even throw box in there. Kind of a mouthful. So this is what we're going to be adjusting. So let me go back to that keyframe that first starts off with the movement. So right here. And now we're going to adjust the width and the height. So animate that keyframe. And then we'll go all the way down to the last keyframe. Okay, so about frame 54. And now we will keyframe these two again. So we'll click that. And we'll go to frame 54, and then I'm just going to drag out the size of this rectangle here. So let me make the size a bit bigger. So we will drag out the width. It looks like we're going to have to animate out the center as well. So I'll just go back to the initial. I'll keyframe it on 54, and then I'll go back to the initial, keyframe it as well. And now we're just going to drag out, I'll drag out the height a bit. Just gonna have to play around with this, drag it in. Get the height. It looks like even the corner radius changes, so go ahead and keyframe that as well. And then we'll shift the corner radius back. And like I said before, now that we're playing with keyframes, you know, you're going to want to actually ease some of this stuff as well. Okay, let me see if we ease it out, if it starts to come together a little bit. So I'm just going to Control A, S. All right, so I think that looks a lot better now that we kind of smoothed it out. It looks a lot better. So now we need the text to fall into place as well because it moves as it changes. So another thing I was noticing when changing that is there's probably a bit of a drop shadow also on this guy. So I'm just going to add that in real quick. So just add in a drop shadow. It's not entirely necessary, but I think it looks good. So now we'll go back and we'll actually move the text so that way we can add in all these new ones. So go ahead and we're going to go back to the initial frame that we started all this stuff on, um, which was 29, and we're going to keyframe the position of the text layout. So I got that keyframe there, and I believe the other one was frame 54. Yep, so go back to frame 54. We're going to also keyframe the center on that one. And now we're going to work on moving the text and the icon into the right position. So we're just going to jump into here, and we're going to add in a transform node on that little block that we made for our text. So we got the transform node. I'm just going to move everything up as it gets pushed around, and we're going to start to animate this. So I'm going to keyframe the center. I don't know if the size is going to move, so I'm going to keyframe that as well. And then I'm going to go back to frame 29, the frame that we started on, and I'm going to do the same thing. So now I'm just going to go to frame 54 where the animation ends, and I'm going to move the text and the icon, just position it in a similar spot. So position it kind of like up here in the corner, and we'll bring down the size a bit. We just need to, again, kind of go in here and smooth some things out. So I'll come in here, hit Control A, S, and just smooth some things out. We can take a look at it. Yeah, pretty decent. So now we can go ahead and come back and we can add this line in here. Should be pretty simple. We can do this a couple different ways. I'm just going to grab the polygon tool. I'm going to grab that. I'm going to grab in a background, connect the background to a merge in front of our text and stuff, and then just connect the polygon mask. So now I'm going to click on the polygon, and I'm just going to go to about where it is. So maybe it'll even let us click on here. So I'll click on the first point right here. That's not going to work exactly, but that's okay, just for reference. And then we'll go to the end of it, and just hold shift when you click here on the end so it stays in a straight line. And now we're going to just untick solid and bring up the border width. And now we kind of just honestly need to drag it into place. So we can go ahead and pop a transform node below this. So we got our transform node. Now we can move this a little bit below so that way it's not touching everything. And I'm just going to adjust the border width so it's not so much. And now we can actually animate the line. So let's come over to the first frame that it's not here, which is frame 47. So we're going to put a keyframe on the border width, and then we're going to put a keyframe on the length. So now we're going to go where the line is completely in here. So I think about frame 73, 72, and we'll keyframe the border width and the length. And now we're going to go back to the initial frame, the first frame, that it's not on the screen. And we're going to change the length and the border width to 0. Just come in here and just smooth everything out. Looks like it's already smooth. I have like an auto smooth feature on, so if you see anything that's auto smoothing, it's probably just because of that. You guys might still need to smooth everything out. So now we can come in, we can watch it again, see how it turns out. Looks pretty good. Okay. So now we just need to add in all this additional text. So essentially, I'm just going to type it out first, and then we can kind of start keyframing everything and doing the whole shebang there. So let me jump in here and just copy our layout that we kind of got going on from our initial text. So I'll Control C, Control V, and let me just make sure what happened to our media out. There it is. I'll drag this media out way down here, so that way we got plenty of room to work with. And now we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 text nodes. So 1, that's 2, 3, 4. Drag the media out some more. 5. So now I'll copy all this, hold Shift, bring it on in. And we're just going to do it one at a time because I think it'll get confusing if I do more. So I'll connect them all and then I'll disable the rest. So I'm going to bring this one in, hold Shift, connect it, drop it, let go of Shift, hold Shift, drop it, let go, Shift, drop, let go, boom. All right, and same thing. So now we got all those. I'm just going to go through here and just disable these. You can just, I have my hotkey set up for D for disable, but you can also click on them and hit Control P, and that will also disable them. So D or Control P, whatever you got yours set up as, honestly. And now I'm just going to delete all these numbers. When you have SVG files, they disconnect from the node pipeline when you're doing this stuff. So, which is totally fine because we're going to be adding in some more SVG files anyways. So now we're going to come back here to this first one, and we're just going to get all the icons in place. So let's drag this down and get it down to approximately where we need it to be. We can keep track, and so this is 0.402. Or whoops, we need the Y position. .605. So we'll just bring it in pretty close. And these ones might be slightly, yeah, I think they're slightly smaller than this top one. I'll probably honestly just adjust that on the transform node. 0.786. So yeah, that'll just make everything easier to adjust. So we'll just line that up pretty much with where we need it to be. And I'll just copy this transform onto all the rest of them. So I'll delete this one, copy, delete, copy, delete, copy, delete, copy, and yeah, that's good. So now we can come back to the text, and we're going to change this to brainstorm what service you'd offer. So we'll do brainstorm what service you'd offer. I'm going to copy all this. I'm also going to come up here on the text node, and I'm going to select this H anchor to the left. This is going to make it so that way when you type in the text, it all goes to the right hand side of the starting position. So now we're going to move the text back into place. And so I'm going to go to layout, and I'm just going to drag it into where we need it, approximately right here. And we're going to switch around the font from bold to regular. So that looks pretty good. And now we are going to need the icon, but first I'm just going to copy this text node over here to all these different ones. So you could have totally avoided this step by doing all this stuff in the first place before making a million of these. But you know, it doesn't add on that much time doing it this way, so it's no big deal. So I'm just gonna bring in all those texts, and now we can go back to the beginning one, and now we have to add in the actual icon. So I'm going to go back to our original icon, which is this number, and it's 150 by 150. So let's see if we can maintain that relative structure through, import SVG, and we're going to go to tech support 150, and it should auto adjust it 150. And cool, so we got the little tech support guy there. And now we pretty much need to just go through and do the same thing with all of them. So I'll walk you guys through another one. We'll come in here to the merge. We'll activate that. So we'll go to the transform. Then we're going to just drag it down to maybe about something like that. We're going to need more space, so we got to probably move these up a bit, actually. So something like that. So now that you got this second one in the correct spot, I'm actually just going to name these just so that way we don't get confused. So I'll name this 1, and then I'll name this one number 2. And it doesn't appear to be working, so we'll do merge icon 1. Merge icon 2. And now we're going to add in our second icon, which is going to be the wall. So come into SVG, and we'll grab the wall. And same thing, we'll do 150. Should auto correct here. And now we just have to bring it on over. Connect it to the transform. And now we got to change our text. Reduce the effect of fear. So I think you guys get the point. I'm just going to skip through these and get them done. So after going through the first one, I realized that we don't have enough room for these. So I need to move up this first one. We might even need to reduce the size. So you'll have to play around with some values there. But I'm just going to go in and adjust these as needed. I'm just going to adjust the second and the ones after. So upon finishing, unfortunately, we're going to have to move that first one because there's just not enough space. Or we can downsize all these. So I might just downsize them all, make them smaller, and then they'll all fit. Then, you know, we just won't run into any sort of issues and we'll be able to get this project done. You guys will understand the concept of doing all this. You guys can tweak the values on your end, but, you know, make it a little bit easier for the tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and just move these and adjust them back into place. So we got that first one. I'm going to go through and just copy this value to all of them. Transform node, X position. Alright, now we can come through and we can do this one. Get them roughly the same length away from each other. Doesn't have to be exact. Essentially just bring them all up because there's not enough space. And boom, we got them all into place. That's exactly what we were looking to see. And now, honestly, all we need to do is just that initial, like fade in, like opacity tweaking, and also the fade of all the characters coming on. So now let's go back into our text and let's just make it so that way they don't come on the screen until they're supposed to. So until frame 46, you're not going to see anything with those text nodes other than this one. We also have to untick some of the boxes on here for considering the position, because they should just fall into place on the last position. I had them all keyframed already, so I got to go in here and just essentially take off all the keyframes for all these nodes. So then we're going to come into the size. We're going to do the same thing. So other than that last keyframe, we're honestly not going to leave anything. So boom, boom. Do the same thing with all of them. So now we need to actually go in and adjust all these icons so that way they're not on the screen and we don't have this overlap like we do right here. So in order to do that, we need to actually come into the frame that they start appearing. So we go to the frame where they are not there, which is, for this first one, is frame 46. So now on frame 46, I'm actually going to end up adding in a transform node. Again, there's going to be a lot of different ways that you can do this, but basically with the way that I've structured this, the easy way that I can think of is adding in another transform under this one. So just so we don't get confused, because we have two transform nodes on top of each other, this one I'll name something like transform size. Even though they're both doing similar things, this one we're going to actually make it disappear and appear. So I'm going to go ahead and keyframe here on frame 46, and then we're going to come up to frame 52 and we're going to keyframe that. And so I'm just going to bring this one down to 0 on the initial frame. And as you can kind of see, it's not really animating exactly how you would want it to animate on the screen. That's because we need to change the pivot value. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the pivot up to maybe something about like the center right here of this object. And then that should probably have fixed it so it comes on the screen properly. So now that we got the pivot in place, that should fix everything. Now we just want to go and smooth everything out. As you can see, it's already smooth for me. Like I said, I have auto smooth on. I thought I turned it off for this video, but apparently it's not working that way. So you just want to go into the spline tab, click on your transform, select your transform size and hit Control A and S, and then you can smooth everything out in there, and that should be good. And now we're going to move on to the next one. We'll come back to kind of all this text fading on. We'll do that in the end, but we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to copy over this node and just hit Control V over here. And so now we're going to find the frame that this one animates on, which is this frame 49. So I'm going to move over the keyframes on the second one. So move that over, and then I will figure out where it comes on full force. And we'll just move this here. You'll also notice with these icons here, when they come on the screen, they are small, then they get a little bit bigger than the actual size, and then they shrink back down. With the way I set everything up here, you're not going to be able to bring them up to the size like this with the icon. If you actually group the, for example, the icon and the background, so this outline here, together, you should be able to animate those together on a separate transform in order to do so. But the way I have it set up here, where this is the background, we can't do that. So hopefully that makes sense. We're just going to have ours pop on the screen. It's not going to increase in size and then decrease. Hopefully you guys make something out of that and understand that. but we need to come over and we need to adjust the pivot point for our second one. So I'm just going to drag this down into the center of this image. We got that. And I'm going to do this for this next one. I'll just adjust the pivot right off the bat. We'll come over to what frame it comes on the screen. All right, so right here on the screen, settles in place right here. And same thing down to the next object. Drop this down. That's pretty good. Right, copy, paste. I think this is the last one. Yup. Okay, move that up. Last one, keyframes, drop down. We'll go to the beginning where it comes on, and then we'll go to where it settles in, which is right here. So these aren't going to look exactly the same. You're going to want to ease your keyframes out. Like I said, mine somehow is getting that auto ease, so I don't really need to do mine. But you're also not going to get this keyframe in the center where it starts to increase in size and then starts to decrease, because otherwise I would have to increase the text as well, because I don't have the nodes separated. So I slightly, this will turn out a slightly different. So let's make sure everything is in place. I forgot to adjust the pivot of the last one. So let me just do that. So we got all these, and now we'll go back to the beginning, let it play. Boom. So it comes on a little quick. You can play around with the keyframes and adjust the handles. Maybe we'll do that in the end. We'll see if we have enough time for it. But otherwise, you just come into the spline tab and you just select your keyframes and zoom to fit. And you're going to want to play around with your handles and drag them out to just get nice easing for it, so that way they come in slower or faster. Now we're going to work on the long and tedious part, which is going to be animating the opacity on all these different words as they come in. So basically, honestly, I don't think there's a really good way of doing this in Davinci. So we're going to actually have to mask out each individual word. So I'm just going to make a bunch of copies of this text node. So we're going to just Control C, Control V, and we're just going to do that a bunch of times. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. So we're going to need 5 text nodes. And I'm just going to go ahead and move all this stuff over. All right, so we got those moved over pretty good. Now I'm going to connect all these to the merge. Just keep adding in merges. You can also use a multi-merge if you don't like the look of this, just having to move everything around all the time. I just don't really see a lot of people using them, so I myself honestly just use the merge node. But that's just probably out of habit. So now we're going to actually mask out each individual word. So I'm going to come in here to the first text, and I'm going to go to rectangle mask, and I'm just going to mask out brainstorm. So I'll come in here and I'll just mask it out real quick. Go ahead and disable these, make sure I'm not getting any weird stuff going on. Then I'll do the second one. So second word, the. And you guys probably get the point on this, so I'm just going to fast forward this part because it's going to take quite a bit of time. So now that I got all the words masked out for this first one, I just want to show you guys how you can go through and just change the opacity on this. So we're going to go to the first keyframe where we don't see brainstorm. So it's going to be 47. And you're just going to go to shading, and then we can come down to opacity, set a keyframe, and then we got to go forward to when you fully see the word brainstorm. So at frame 50, you set it to 1, and then we go back to the first keyframe. We go to 0, and then you're just going to kind of do this through and through for each different letter. So we'll go to frame 50 for what? That's when this one starts animating on. Keyframe. And then 52 is when it's finished. Change the opacity to 0. And then same thing, I think they just all animate after one another, so they take about 2 keyframes, or 2 frames a piece. So now we're going to do this one. Again, opacity. And then you want to come in, you want to smooth out all your keyframes. So mine's on auto smooth yet again, so we're good. And then you get something like this. So it looks slightly different on mine because the way I structure my nodes yet again. But it looks pretty good, not too bad. And now you just simply repeat the process on all the other text within this thing and get a similar effect. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and come back, show you guys the finished result. So another way that you can do the exact same thing with the opacity is you can come into the rectangle mask, and you can just keyframe the level. This might actually make it a little bit easier for you guys. So it's literally the same process, just you would be keyframing the level as opposed to the opacity. And plus, I don't think it's 2 keyframes anymore as we go on. It looks like it's 3 on for reduce in the second word or the second line. So just you might want to pay extra attention to how many, and then it goes back to the 2 pattern, so maybe not. But anyways, just pay attention, and yeah. Okay, so I just finished up doing the opacity on all of them. It took me quite a bit of time, but I was able to get it done, and this is the final impression here. So as you guys just saw, this is not exactly the same, but it's really quite similar. Unfortunately, this video has taken a lot of time to make, so I'm going to have to make a part 2 for this video. So if you guys got value out of this video, make sure you guys slap that like and subscribe button. It really helps me teach more of you guys and get the video out to as many people as possible. So stay tuned for part 2. You're not going to want to miss it.